I received a question today from a soon-to-be applicant who was concerned about their undergraduate GPA, and they were wondering whether going to graduate school might be a way to compensate for the low GPA and get into a top 14 school. And so the issue that I wanted to address in this video is whether or not going to graduate school is a good way to increase your likelihood of getting into a top law school. Now, the answer is it depends. If the goal or the idea is that you have a less than ideal GPA and that you can go to graduate school and get very good grades, that somehow will make up for your undergraduate GPA, the answer is probably not. At the end of the day, the LSAT and the undergraduate GPA are the two things that every law school applicant has in common. That's the thing that they're going to use to compare you and look at your academic fitness. And especially given how much grade inflation there is in graduate programs, simply getting good grades in a graduate program is probably not going to do a whole lot. Now that said, there are ways, however, where going to graduate school or enrolling in a graduate program will definitely will increase your likelihood of getting in. And I think there are five big areas or big occasions where going to graduate school might be worth it in order to optimize your chances of getting in. So number one is if you're going to graduate school as part of a prestigious or renowned fellowship, one that will actually mean something to the law school admissions committee. So like the most obvious example here would be a Rhodes or Marshall scholar, or maybe a Gates scholar. I mean, there's no question that an applicant with a certain GPA and LSAT score, all things being equal, if they have the distinction of being a Rhodes Scholar or Marshall Scholar and they're going to Oxford that way, there's going to be a very obvious premium there. So going to graduate school as part of a prestigious fellowship may definitely be worthwhile. Number two is if, as part of your graduate work, you have an opportunity to publish or attain some kind of academic distinction, that could be very valuable. So this is obviously the most pertinent if you're enrolling in a PhD program and an outgrowth of your PhD work is that you become one of the top people in your field, you contribute something real, and you publish in a top-tier academic journal or you write an academic book. This is something that really is going to carry weight and add to your intellectual credibility. And although a PhD is the obvious way to do this, also even if you go to a master's degree, but that involves getting a serious recognized publication in an academic field, I think that could be very valuable. And I guess related to the publication issue would just be generally if you have a way of really making an impact on your field in some way, that could really matter. Number three is if, as part of your graduate work, you really get to know a professor who's renowned in their field, who can write you a letter of recommendation. So for example, like let's say you enroll in a psychology graduate program and you work closely with a professor who then writes you, who's at the top of their field, like let's say looking at an issue at the intersection of law and psychology, and then they write a letter for you basically saying that, I'm the top scholar in this field, this graduate student who I worked with is the best in this profession. If they go to law school, they can really make an impact in the academic field. That's the kind of reference that you could have at the undergraduate level, but you may not. So if graduate school is a means of getting that kind of a letter of recommendation, it may be worthwhile. Number four is if if going to graduate school is going to allow you to build a relationship with a certain school. Um, so, for example, let's say that your goal is to get into Harvard Law School, and during your undergraduate years, you were not really able to build any kind of a special relationship with Harvard Law School. It may be possible that, like, let's say, getting a graduate degree at the Kennedy School, by virtue of being at Harvard, being affiliated there, you might leverage that graduate program or school to maybe take a course in the law school, or get to know a law school professor, maybe work in a clinic, or just establish some kind of a tie or relationship with the school that you want to go to. Those are the kind of networks and experiences that would certainly provide you with a way to make an impression on the admissions committee and really show them that you have a special connection to their program. And finally, I would, this is what I would call the long game strategy. And what that basically means is if you're willing to take time and really apply to law school many years down the line, and here graduate school might make sense if it offers a path to getting or doing an interesting set of experiences. So maybe you don't, after your undergraduate years, you don't quite have the kind of resume that you need to get into top law school, or maybe you're just not ready to go. It might make sense, for example, to go to business school first, and then use business school as a platform or a means to get a job in the private sector or a job in entrepreneurship, or get involved with some kind of a unique opportunity that then gives you an interesting dynamic profile that you can then use to get into a top law school. And this might be a particularly worthwhile strategy if you went to an undergraduate school that isn't necessarily a top tier school, but you did get into a top graduate program. So maybe that might mean getting into a top tier business school. It might be going to a top journalism school. There are a lot of different ways where sort of the opportunities that may arise out of going to a graduate program may help you build out your overall profile. So the bottom line here is, if you're going to graduate school simply because you're not happy with your GPA and you think going to a graduate school and getting good grades may overcome that, the answer is probably not. But if you can be more strategic about it, if you can go to graduate school under a certain set of circumstances, or allow it to facilitate a certain set of opportunities, it may be an option worth considering. If you'd like to talk about your own individual circumstance, you'd like to get more personal advice, definitely reach out to me, and this is something that we could perhaps work on together.